Hi everyone, this is William. I beg your pardon for not having managed a video for the 1921 Diary series yesterday. I'm going to be very pressed for time this month, but as I said previously, I will do my best. So we have a continuation, although actually the last part of this medium long entry, and we've gone through a lot of stuff. You know, the stay in Copenhagen, the first impressions of oh, sorry, I meant to say the brief stay in Hamburg, the first impressions of Copenhagen, and a little bit about people there. And finally, this thunderclap about having possibly found the right woman, but the rational side of himself, the cold, logical, or practical side of himself, as he puts it, telling him, no, don't fall for this girl. I guess I can call her a girl. She was 23. He was, nearly 30. So was Dmitri the kind of guy who had these like lightning bolt infatuations that sort of took him by surprise? Well, I don't know if he was overall, but I know of 3 instances where that did happen. One when he was still very young, I believe still 16, and he met Queen Marie of Romania and was immediately infatuated with her. He said in love, although possibly it was more in lust, but he clearly just found her the most fascinating and sexy woman in the world. And that went rather badly, but that's a topic for another video. And the next one was when he was in London, when he was staying at the Ritz, and he saw a woman that he didn't know. He just saw her. I can't remember if he saw her in the grill room or just in the corridors, and he just fell for her hard, and to the extent that he even was sort of mildly stalking her when they were in the hotel itself. Not in a sinister way, but he would look for her so that he could be near the elevator. He would wait. I don't know where he stood while he was waiting, but he would, sort of, be out of view, but watching for her. And when he would see her come down the corridor toward the lift, he would go so that they could be on the lift together, as if by chance. And she was a married woman, as he found out. Her name was Giselle Marburg. And I don't know if they ever, in fact, had a physical relationship, but she shared his interests to a certain extent, and in fact, they became very good friends. Whether they had a physical relationship or not, they did end up having a long-term platonic friendship, so much so that he was still in touch with her at the end of his life. So this, our friend Marie-Louise von Moltke Wittfeld, is number 3, and he hasn't fallen for her quite to the extent that he did for Queen Marie of Romania, which was the most passionate, or even, it seems, for Giselle Marburg, but he likes her. Okay, and he's so eager to get married, as you know. So this is just a little bit that we'll finish up with. And here we go. It is, of course, early to be talking about all of this, and it's pretty unpleasant to have these thoughts in my head after only 2 weeks of acquaintanceship. There's also a huge difficulty with respect to the fact that she's Catholic. They never convert to Orthodoxy under any circumstances. And even beyond that, there's the question of children, which is very complicated. So I repeat, it's almost stupid to even write about all these things, but in the first place, I have long been in the grip of thoughts about matrimony, and now they've taken on a more concrete form. This is the first time I've liked a young lady, and indeed one who, under the other circumstances, would be the ideal wife. But it's premature to get immersed in all these thoughts. I need to wait a little while and see how things develop. And now, as always, I will switch to a description of how I spent each day. So that's that for the diary entry of 15th February 1921. So let's just talk about a couple things. One, this statement Dmitri makes about Catholics never converting to Orthodoxy under any circumstances, and that by and large is true. Of course, there are exceptions, and it's also true in the opposite direction, that the Orthodox almost never convert to Roman Catholicism. And, there's really, at some level, there's really no love lost between these two faith confessions. The Orthodox Church does not have a pope. It is a collegial model. You have patriarchs, but no one of them is preeminent or can speak for the entire church. And of course, in the Roman Catholic Church, you do have a pope, and Orthodox believers tend to find that very off-putting. It's one of the biggest sticking points. And there are huge theological issues. I won't even say doctrinal because it's beyond that. They're fundamental theological issues. And the fact of the matter is that people too often see the Catholic and the Orthodox churches as being closely related, and the Protestant church in all its different denominations being the one that's off on its own. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to theology, Orthodox tend to look at the Western Church. Orthodox tend to consider ourselves a form of Eastern Christianity, and see the Catholic and the Protestants as all part of one Western Church, basically. So that's how profound the theological differences are beneath the surface. So, yeah, it was not, Romanovs did not marry Roman Catholics, and Roman Catholics did not marry from the princesses or princes from Roman Catholic dynasties did not marry Romanovs. So the Romanov source of brides and husbands was Scandinavia and Germany and the British royal family. Yeah, but not Spain or France or any of the Roman Catholic countries. So, Dimitri's right. That's a very big obstacle. And the question of children, as he says, is another one, because as far as I know from my Roman Catholic friends and those who are in mixed marriages in terms of religion, the Catholic Church, if they're going to marry a Catholic to an Orthodox or a Protestant, pretty much insists in advance that the children will be raised Catholic. Now, I don't know, I don't know that that's true, but that at least is what I've heard. And so, yeah, that's pretty difficult thing going into a relationship, and he's not wrong to think about that. Even if he wasn't a Grand Duke and they were just two ordinary people, he would not be wrong to think about that, although it would certainly be less complicated. Okay, yes, he's a little agitated here. He writes, in the first place, I have been long in the grip, but he doesn't ever present us with a second place. But, this idea that so Dmitri struggles sometimes with having kind of obsessive thoughts, and he talks about this. If there's a certain idea or a certain disturbing thought, for instance, when immediately after the revolution, when he was thinking about what future will I possibly have, You know, that was an obsessive thought that was making him really depressed, and it was something that he needed to think about, but not to let himself be overwhelmed by. And so he's saying that that's the case here as well. He's trying to be very level-headed and cautious and slow to make decisions, but he's having a hard time with that. And yeah, that's all pretty normal stuff, except it seems to be a little bit, it seems to be a little more intense with him. He talks about being immersed in these thoughts and, basically not being able to get rid of them and needing the release of his diary. And I'm sure that was something that intensified it when he had one of these experiences, whatever it was that was eating away at him, was that he didn't, he didn't talk to people about things. And that, in fact, seems to go back to his childhood when he had all this anxiety around people's relationships with each other and people's attitudes toward each other, including with his own primary caregiver, General Laming, and also with Ella. And it really cost him a lot of anxiety. Any of you who are watching the videos of the 1907 diary know that. So, yeah, I think that aggravated things, the fact that he didn't feel free to talk to people about it, or didn't really feel close to people outside of his sister. So this is a very interesting statement that he makes, following on from the statement he made in this previous section when he had said he never cast a serious glance at any young lady. So I pointed out then that he's using the word barishnya, which is a young lady of family, a young unmarried woman of family, a noble woman, presumed to be a virgin, but that's just a presumption based on social convention. And he tells us he's never cast a serious glance at one, and now he's telling us that he's never even liked one. So this is the first time I've liked a young lady. And Dmitri had real doubts about himself emotionally, about whether he could be strongly attached to people, about whether he could love someone. And he mentions that explicitly once in the diary. I can't remember exactly where. But yeah, I mean, as I mentioned yesterday, he may have desired a marriage with his cousin Olga Nikolaevna, Nicholas and Alexandra's son, on political grounds, but there was no love match there. And there was certainly no love match with his cousin Irina, the daughter of Grand Duchess Ksenia and Grand Duke Alexander Mikhailovich. And he just wasn't interested. He liked women who were quite a bit older, in fact, sometimes as old enough to be his mother, or, more typically around 10, 12 years older than him. That's what he liked. And so, he understands, though, that that's not, in conventional terms, that's not what a man of that age and in his position would want for a wife. You would want a young woman with whom you can have children. And he's looking at her and saying, under other circumstances, she would be the ideal wife. And I'm not quite sure what he means by that, unless it is that, well, at this point, he is genuinely still considering himself to be very likely the future ruler of Russia, and worried about public opinion. But, really, I mean, I think he also has a sense that public opinion would, as long as he married a woman from a good family, that public opinion would be all right with that. So maybe there's also, maybe there's some personal anxiety there on his part, even though he tells us how much he wants to get married and have a family. Maybe he's a little afraid of it. So, yeah, Anyway, your thoughts are as good as mine on that subject. And when we come back, we are going to dive into his daily life. As he says, we are going to watch and see how things develop with Marie Louise, whom he will soon start referring to by a sort of cutesy nickname, pet name. And, he's going to fill us in on that. And it's just a pity that we don't have anything that she wrote to say, where she was in this whole scenario and how she felt about him. If she was attracted to him, if she was just thinking of him as, a prestigious marriage prospect, or if in fact she didn't feel either of those things. So we are, I can tell you, going to get more detail about the Hamburg trip to begin with before we go into daily life in Copenhagen. And in fact, he's writing long diary entries for the day-to-day stuff, and he's got a lot more to say about Hamburg. I meant to say he's got a lot more to say about Hamburg. So that just completely fascinated him, that stop there. So yeah, come back for all this. I hope I can get to the 1907 diary entry this evening, but we'll see. And at any rate, I'll see you next time. Bye.